Now, it may be 20 years away, but there's no keeping High Speed 2 out of the news. It's of particular interest, of course, to our two guests today. Lilian is Shadow Rail Minister, and Andrew, well, he's a bit worried the line's going to go straight through his garden. We'll get their views in a minute, but first, the Transport Secretary and Derbyshire Dales MP Patrick McLoughlin has been speaking to our political editor John Hess about how he made the decision about where the trains should run and where the stations should be too.
I realise that part of the route will be very unpopular. It is inevitable. You cannot build a major infrastructure in this country without causing some problems, without some people being against the plan. But what we've got to look to as a government is what is in the long-term interest of the United Kingdom. And as I said earlier this week, you know, this is the first railway line to be built north of Birmingham in 120 years.
But Nick Rushton says for Leicester and Leicestershire they get all the pain but none of the gain.
Well, I don't think that is true, actually. The truth is, if you look at where East Midlands Airport is, for instance, it was built by the three counties. It was built by Derbyshire, Leicestershire and Nottinghamshire, and Leicestershire certainly felt that it got some of the gain as far as the airport was concerned, quite a lot of gain. I believe that the station that we're talking about at Towton will give gain. Also, what will happen is one of the most important things about High Speed 2, it isn't mainly about speed, it is actually about providing capacity on the rail network. And we are desperately short of capacity, and Leicestershire will get extra capacity as a result of HS2.
How will Leicestershire get extra capacity?
Because it will free up track space on the lines of the Midland Main Line, which we're going to be electrifying, and it will free up track space on that. And that's how you build capacity into the whole network.
So, Andrew, you heard what he had to say there. It's for the good of the country.
Well, it's certainly not to the good of North West Leicestershire. We are going to be taking all of the pain for none of the gain. And even if the much disputed economic benefits of HS2 to the country as a whole do come at some time in the future, which is probably going to be 2032, the fact is that the blight, the fear and the planning paralysis actually happened the moment the plans were announced a week last Monday. And already the housing market is collapsing in a swathe across the line of HS2, which runs straight from north to south, straight through the middle of my constituency. I've had
through your garden?
No, it doesn't actually go to my land. Next door it goes.
Well, but very, very close. A lot of people would say you would be annoyed about this, and if you don't actually make a big fuss about it, you could lose a lot of votes.
Well, there's nothing in it for my constituents. I mean, I would say that my constituents are sort of actually 40-1 against it. But I mean, the economic argument, I think, is completely flawed. 20 years' time, when this project may or may not come to fruition, I think video conferencing, the rollout of superfast broadband will have got to a stage where people will not travel for business. It will all be done over the internet on TV screens. People will still travel for pleasure, and that means spending money. If you think that people in London are going to say, oh, there's something good on at the Birmingham Hippodrome, let's go up there and have a meal, or do you think people in Birmingham are going to say, let's go to the West End? I think it'll just draw more money into London. OK,
Lilian, what's your view on this, and where does Labour stand on this? Are you for it?
Well, I actually found myself in agreement with most of the things that Patrick McLoughlin said. Obviously, High Speed 2 was a Labour idea, and we're really glad that the current government are pressing ahead with it. I think the point that Patrick made is really important. This is about increasing the capacity of our rail network. More and more people we know want to travel by rail, and yet some of them find that the routes are desperately overcrowded, and this will just help us to provide that step change. It will enable people to see Nottingham as being somewhere and the East Midlands as somewhere that they can invest, because they can get easily from London, but also from Birmingham and from Leeds, and those time savings are really important.
Nice of you to put the government line on this, but you're talking about freeing up capacity.
I've spoken to thousands and thousands and thousands of business people in my careers, and one thing I can guarantee, Murray, no one's ever said to me, my business is not thriving or not doing as well as it should because I can't get to London fast enough. That's never ever been mentioned.
Well, let me tell you that we've had a couple of questions, as you can imagine, on this.
Businesses in the East Midlands, businesses in Nottingham and Derbyshire are saying they are pro-HS2. They want this development to go ahead. That was the view of the Chambers of Commerce.
OK, well, let's hear some viewers' views here. Graham Tyler on Facebook and Dave King on Twitter have told us they've actually made the same point here. They say, if there's a tunnel under East Midlands Airport, why not build a station there?
That would be some consolation to my constituency. We actually haven't got a station at all in North West Leicestershire, so we always have to travel. My constituents will have the pleasure of driving half an hour north to Towton to get to London half an hour faster. There's nothing in it for us.
OK.
Well, I mean, I think that there is the possibility of looking at additional stations. The government have introduced what's their preferred route, and there's obviously going to be a consultation. But the reason it's in Towton is because it's close to Nottingham, which is the major market for use of HS2.
Well, Andrew certainly made no secret of his opposition, but what about his constituents? Do they feel the same? And are people in Lilian's Nottingham South excited by the prospect? We sent Des Coleman to find out.
Recorded in the Doomsday Book, the village of Appleby Magna has enjoyed the peace and quiet of a rural Leicestershire village for over 1,000 years. But over the next few years, that peace and quiet could be shattered by 250-mile-an-hour high-speed trains. We've come here to find out your thoughts.
The only people that are going to use the HS2 are business people. The ordinary man in the street will not be using it. So it's a waste of 32 billion. We can find something else better to spend that on.
Yeah, I don't think it'll actually be worse than having the M42 running past our houses. It's very noisy. I can hear it now. It's a quiet day, and I don't think the railway will actually be noisier.
Obviously, if it brings jobs and income and increases the value of the properties here, it's well worth it, but I don't know the extent of the disruption, so it's hard to say.
I think the benefits of it, to me, it wouldn't be worth it. I'm sure to lots of people it would, but to me, myself, it probably wouldn't be worth doing it.
You'll be quicker on your horse anyway, wouldn't you?
Definitely. Prefer it anyway.
Thank you. From the beauty of the rural countryside to the hustle and bustle of the city. Lilian, we're in your constituency just to find out what your constituents think.
What's heartbreaking, the billions and millions that's been spent, it's never put where it's mostly needed, is it? Let's face it, is it?
I think it'd be a good thing. Yeah, you might get a lot of people coming from London down here and living down here, because it'll be cheaper to come down here on train, won't it, than go back up there.
I think they should invest more money elsewhere. Yeah. Plough it into the youngsters and get them out and get them jobs.
I've got no objections to it. Pretty good idea, I think.
So, Andrew, not everyone in your constituency was against this, were they? I mean, a bit of surprise in Appleby Magna. Some people were quite supportive.
I think the more they find out about the project, I think the less they'll like it. I think there was a very healthy scepticism that it can be brought in on time and on budget. We're talking about 20 years from now, and I don't think any government has a track record of being able to deliver on that. I think it's going to be hugely over budget, 2 or 3 times over budget. I think there might be an opportunity. They might build the bit from London to Birmingham. I think that part will be so over budget, I doubt that the why will ever take place.
And some of your constituents, Lilian, are basically saying it could be money better spent elsewhere, basically.
But I think we also heard that everybody was talking about the importance of jobs for them and for their children, and that is what this is about. It's investing in the future of the country, and I think that's why people understand that. And I just think Andrew's scaremongering about the years away.
But if we don't invest now, what does that mean for us?
Let's talk about local jobs. This route of HS2 going under the airport and north of there runs straight through a potential development site earmarked for 2015 for the strategic rail freight interchange. 7,000 jobs, not delivered in 2026 or 2032, 2015 onwards. And I've got a meeting on Monday trying to sort out the mess of this.
Well, Mr McLaughlin said we could have both, didn't he?
Well, if you look at the plans, the tunnel comes out north of the airport and runs straight through the development side. We're at the point now, if we can't get something sorted out in the next few weeks, the developer's going to walk away, and that's a £500 million private sector investment.
What are you going to do about this? Are you going to keep fighting it?
Absolutely.
What happens next?
Absolutely. Well, I think we've got to keep making the points. The economic case is very fragile. We've got to look at HS2 high-speed trains around Europe and see the impact of that, and there will be a change in public perception as they realise this is a failed project.
Are you saying that development with all those jobs won't go ahead then?
I've got a meeting with the Department of Transport on Monday morning to try and salvage something from it.
OK, well, please let us know how that goes.